It's a brilliant career. It's thrilling, it's exciting, it's ever changing. There's new experiences every day. Chefs support chefs in a way that I don't think any other industry does.
Well, hello there. It is Dani Valent with you for an episode of Dirty Linen, my food podcast, where we chat to people in all areas of the food, hospitality and restaurant world. Today I am still in the glow of a beautiful couple of days in country Victoria at Daylesford. I was lucky to stay at Lake House, which is celebrating 40 years this year. Lake House is a restaurant, accommodation, there's a spa. Didn't get to go to the spa this time. Function areas. It's a really magical place. One of the most special aspects of it is that for the past 6 or 7 years, Lake House has had dairy flat farm where they grow a lot of produce. So did a little farm tour with the farmer there, Pietro. Thanks for the tour. It was ace. Saw the vineyard, some olive trees, fruit trees, veggies, all a bit quiet over winter, but you can just sense the soil resting, ready to spring into life. Also had a beautiful meal at Bar Merenda, which is in Daylesford. And it was Monday night, so Bar Merenda does different things on Mondays. And what we lucked onto this Monday was a menu du jour. So basically a 3-course menu. You just get what you're given. You know, dietaries notwithstanding, you can, if you've got dietaries, they'll accommodate, of course. But yeah, no choice. Eat what they've made. And why don't more restaurants do this? It's so enjoyable, relaxing, economical for the restaurant, and something a little bit different as a diner. Really loved it. Beautiful visit, but nice to come back to chilly Melbourne for some eating, chatting, writing. Today's conversation is a really good one. I love to chat to people working in all different areas of the hospitality industry. It is such a broad and diverse world, and you'll certainly get a sense of that in today's conversation with Sarah Maric. Sarah is a chef originally from England, but been in Australia for decades. And she does a lot of work with education at the moment, but she's really passionate about the Australian Institute of Technical Chefs, which we will hear more about today. She talks about this professional chef association, which is part of her ongoing project to elevate the industry and highlight the skills, qualifications and experience of people that are working in it. So let's dive into my chat with Sarah Maric. Sarah, welcome to Dirty Linen. It is so great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Dani. It's an absolute pleasure to be here talking to you.
So I think one of the things that's so interesting and great about what you do is that you see so many different aspects to the life of a chef and the ways of taking a career as a chef. And I thought it would be nice to start by just finding out where you are today and what you're up to.
Oh, well, today I'm down in Geelong at the Gordon Institute of Training for young apprentices. And we've got a competition on. We've got 70 apprentices from all over Victoria. So there's some from Holmes Glen, some from Chisholm, some from William Angliss, some from Crown, various locations. I've just finished judging the third-year apprentices. We had around about 13 in the room. And I'm going back in a few moments to finish judging the first-year apprentices. So it's a very exciting day. There's about 30 judges here, and there's judging going on in 3 areas.
That is amazing. I mean, what does it feel like? What's the energy like?
Oh, the energy is very exciting. You kind of get this. There's a lot of emotional energy, especially from the apprentices. They're anxious, they're nervous, excited. As time goes on, you see, for some of them, the pressure builds and the intensity and emotion builds, and at the last moment they get a little bit flustered. other apprentices, and I suppose it depends on the personality. They'd stay sort of calm all the way through, and they're really organised and they're planned to the nth degree. And also, if something goes a little bit off their plan, so something goes a little bit wrong, you also sort of start to see them get really nervous and shake sometimes. So you've got to be the person in the room that tries to keep them feeling at ease and calm. And if you start to see them getting a bit tense when you're on their workstation, you kind of move away, because you don't want them to crack just because you're standing there seeing what they're doing and judging. So you kind of got to keep moving around the room.
And, you know, what does this experience tell you about the hospitality industry?
Well, I have to say today, seeing so many young people coming in, this is the most they said that they've judged in 17 years. So that's a very positive sign. If young people are actually engaging in this process, and they are aware themselves, I guess, that going into competitions gives them an emotional edge under pressure in a kitchen. So I think that's probably why young people are coming back into this. Yeah, and the excitement of it. You know, there's a lot of excitement taking part in a day like today.
And what about the skills that you're seeing?
Well, a broad range of skills. Technical ability is quite good. We've seen some quite complex dishes coming out. Some of them are pushing themselves a little bit too hard, as always happens in these cases. And so it's a fine balance sometimes between pushing yourself with technical skill and having the time to execute that perfectly. Often the people who push themselves a little bit too far sometimes, they might lose a couple of marks because of that. If they just edged back a little fraction and given themselves just that little bit more time to execute it, you would have come out with, you know, a technically perfect dish rather than, yeah.
It is such a balance, isn't it? I don't know why I suddenly thought of this, but I thought of myself in grade 2 when there was a yo-yo competition and there were kids doing really spectacular tricks. But, you know, one by one, they all bombed out. And I only knew one trick, and it was barely even a trick. All I could do was just yo-yo up and down and then occasionally just flip the yo-yo over my wrist. It was pretty easy. So I could just keep going. And yeah, I was the last one standing and I won the competition and 5 cents.
Oh, that's so much fun. So that was at school, was it?
Yeah, that was when I was about 8. But I suppose it just makes me think of it's that balance between execution and pushing yourself.
Yes, and that's right. And it is a fine line. It is a fine line. And all we can do is be there to support them. And you know, we guide them with the feedback they get at the end, which is excellent. And hopefully they'll pick something up for the next competition.
Absolutely. So, Sarah, I know that you've been very involved with the Australian Institute of Technical Chefs and just bringing that to the forefront of what you've been up to. Can you tell us what the Australian Institute of Technical Chefs is?
Yes. So the Australian Institute of Technical Chefs started about 10 years ago. It came from a senior group of chefs that had been in the industry for between, say, 30 and 50 years on average, all coming together and having a deep conversation about the challenges that the industry was facing regarding professionalism and professional standards. So they devised a constitution around the concept of accreditation for the technical skills, ability and attitudes of chefs. And so what we are is an accreditation board in a sense, or an organisation that it has the highest echelon of chefs within it, and their skills and their attitude and ability have all been validated. And so we have 90 chefs across Australia in different areas. So we've got some in aged care, we've got some in large hotels, we've got some in resorts, and a broad range of different areas of the hospitality industry. So within the group of chefs that we have, we get a lot of feedback about what's happening within the industry and where the challenges are.
And what are some of the challenges that you're hearing about or that you're seeing yourself?
Well, the challenges that I'm still hearing are, the skills that are coming through the industry currently. A lot of the senior chefs are sort of saying to me that they're having to go back and reteach their junior chefs skills. Some young people are coming in with limited ability, and so they're taking, depending on the kitchen team and the techniques and processes involved, as long as 3 to 6 months to build up these young chefs coming in to the level that they need within their kitchen. So there's a lot of effort being put into the skills of young people within teams, depending on the areas that they're working in. We've got a younger generation who want work-life balance. So I'm hearing that the industry is adapting and being more flexible in the work arrangements and hours. Some businesses are actually getting their staff to put the days off that they want up on a designated roster, so that they know that they're being supportive of their staff, and building rosters around their team. So, if they've got a family event on or a specific day they need off. So businesses are being much more flexible in the work arrangements. But the challenges around that are, ensuring that you've got enough strength and ability within your team to cover, services, and managing your business flow and organisation.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I think, it's what you're talking about is this real industry-wide grappling with the way things are now in all kinds of ways, like culturally, professionally, just in terms of people planning a life in one career. There are so many ways that our world continues to change.
Yeah, we do need to support young people in this way going forward, because if we want them to hold a career in the industry, we do need to be more flexible in today's society, because every other work environment is more flexible. Certainly, businesses are working towards being, more emotionally aware, more flexible around family and family commitments. These are all things that the industry really does have to, focus on going forward.
I mean, you mentioned some of these pathways for chefs, for example, in aged care or in resorts or hotels. I mean, we talk to a lot of restaurant chefs on this podcast for the most part, but of course there are so many different areas of the industry. Are there areas of chefing that you would steer people towards if they wanted a certain type of work-life balance?
Oh, yes, certainly. But I mean, if a chef is wanting that edgy environment with that, fast growing, fast developing sort of work environment, then restaurants are definitely the way to go. You're always going to build your skills and knowledge faster in those environments. Hotels, by their very nature, are generally more supportive and nurturing of their staff. They put a lot of effort and time into building their apprentices and their teams, but they move and change more slowly over time. And their menus seem to be more stable, whereas restaurants, especially today, they have to be incredibly fast and adaptable because of the cost of ingredients, the cost of wages, the flow of customers coming and going. Whereas a hotel, they know how many customers they've got coming in. They've got forward projections because they've got whole departments who work on, projections going forward. They know how many they've got for breakfast. They know how many they've got coming in for conferences. Whereas a restaurant doesn't have any of that. They're working on bookings or people walking in the door. So they have to be incredibly adaptable. So they're very, very different. Aged care, it's probably one of the most consistent work environments where you know your client base, and your client base will move very slightly, but you would have pretty much the same volume of people every day, and you can project your menus out for a month in advance and rotate those menus. Same with cruise ships, things like that. So out of all of them, I guess the restaurant environment would be the most intense, mobile, but probably the most ongoing learning environment for a young person coming into the industry.
Sarah, what's been your pathway? Like, how did you come to be chefing?
I've got a very different path to some. I left the family farm in the UK as a 17-year-old, travelled to the Channel Islands, and got a job working for the governor of the Channel Islands at the time as a qualified chef at 18 going on 19. I worked there for about a year for the governor, and he got me a visa to Australia through Government House in London. I travelled through Africa for a period of time with other travellers, landed on the east coast of Australia in Sydney. I'd got a couple of $1,000s in my pocket, so I've got to make a decision very quickly about gathering work. So I travelled north to Townsville, went to all the travel agents in town and asked them where I could find work, which islands needed staff. I went back a few days later. They mentioned 2 different islands, so I had 2 telephone interviews in the one day, and I got the job on Orpheus Island, far north Queensland. So I worked on Orpheus Island, which is an exclusive resort off of Townsville, 75 kilometres out in the ocean. Worked there for several months, and then travelled down to Melbourne. Then I got a sous chef position at one of the hotels. Then I moved to the RACV club. Went into Crown, and so I ran the 15th floor at the RACV club. Then I went into Crown and ran Cold Larder. Went into Melbourne University and ran the business school there, which was an MBA centre for people from all over Southeast Asia. It was like a mini hotel. Moved on to Sanctuary Lakes Resort as executive chef. After being the head chef at the Melbourne Business School, and then transitioned to the Commonwealth Games in Melbourne. So I did a lot of the preparation, planning and technical support for the Commonwealth Games here in Melbourne. So that was my largest operation with the executive chef there, Walter Schlumberger.
Sarah, what an incredible journey. I'm just thinking of, this young chef on the Channel Islands, and then teleporting almost to Orpheus Island. What were some of the differences in cuisine between those 2 places?
Well, Government House, they're funded by they were funded by the royal family. So we did everything from scratch. So we made our own bread, our own biscuits. We made chocolates. We did lots of formal cocktail parties. Finger sandwiches, cucumber sandwiches were extremely popular. And we would do formal dinners for state dignitaries and politicians and people like that were flying into the island. So a dinner was usually between 10 and 15 people. A cocktail party would have been anywhere from 70 to 100 people in the formal dining space. Orpheus Island was an exclusive resort. So I went from that environment into an environment where seafood was the main event. So I went to Orpheus Island, and it was lots of lobster, lots of Moreton Bay bogs, lots of prawns, lots of oysters, lots of mussels, just lots and lots of seafood. And every day, the menu changed depending on what we had available, because all the food came by barge from Lucinda. So you couldn't guarantee on having stock. So you had to be very, very adaptable and flexible to what you had on hand. And sometimes I would write a menu in the afternoon for dinner in the evening, because it depended on whether the barge, was today or tomorrow, what I had in stock. And we also had an amazing vegetable garden on the island with lots of herbs. And we used to climb up a ladder onto the roof of the kitchen and pick tamarinds from the tree above the kitchen. So that's an ongoing memory. We also had our own coconuts on the island, so we would go and collect coconuts and crack them and shave the coconut meat inside and add that to dishes. So we had access to really fresh ingredients because we had our own vegetable garden.
I mean, Sarah, what sort of attitudes or values have you carried with you through your career?
Well, that was something that I put in the notes prior to this conversation, actually, that I think chefs have an innate love of food. We are people who maybe come from families who value the importance of food and come together to share and love quality produce. And that is certainly something that's really indicative of my life. Both my mum and my dad had enormous vegetable patches. So my dad, he had about an acre of land that he would cultivate to grow his own vegetables. My mum had an acre of land that she would cultivate vegetables on. We had the farm, so we had, fresh milk, fresh meat, fresh lamb. Dad would shoot ducks and things on the property. If we went to visit family, it was always about lunch or coming together around food and discussing things within the family. So food has been a very important part of my childhood. And then I guess I just carried that, through into my adult life. So I really do value food, and I think it is the glue that holds society together.
And what sort of, I mean, loving food is one thing, but you've done so many different things in your life. Like, what sort of attitude have you carried into your working life?
I guess I've just been open to new experiences. I definitely challenged myself. I mean, that transition coming out of the Channel Islands to travel through Africa and then into Australia. I remember, and I've said this to my students many times, was absolutely terrifying. The thought of leaving your country, traveling halfway around the world was actually terrifying, but at the same time, incredibly exciting. And then I remember flying into Orpheus Island, and I thought I'd landed in paradise. I'd flown over the reef in a helicopter. I mean, who gets to do that at 19 for free? Flown over the reef. I'd seen various islands, beautiful tropical vistas and beautiful blue waters. And then we landed on the helicopter pad on the island, and I could just see all the villas in front of me and the pier, and it's burnt into my memory. So yes, I've been incredibly lucky. And I've said that to so many people. This industry can take you to so many places and give you so many experiences that no other career can ever give you.
I suppose I have this image of you like, yes, it's this big adventure. You're in a chopper, like amazing, but it's also, there's a bit of terror of the unknown. But have you felt when you've, thrown yourself into all these new challenges that there is also, you've got the consistency of, okay, at a certain point it's going to be you and a knife and a chopping board and you know what you're doing?
Yes, I guess yes. You have those skills and characteristics and that knowledge that you carry with you. Yes, you do. Yeah.
And I wonder, I mean, you've obviously worked with, it must be thousands of different people over that time. I mean, what sort of approaches do you take to your dealings with other people?
I guess I'm fairly easygoing. I'm open. I generally engage with people, start conversations, and I guess I'm sharing the values that I have mostly with these people around food, respectful, inclusive. All of those, I guess, they're the characteristics I take with me. I engage with everybody the same.
Yeah. And Sarah, you've said to me that you think chefs are 1 in 1,000.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
So I've been engaged in the education system now for over 10 years. And what I see is the chefs that find their way into the kitchen and stay there are kind of distilled down from society. So you've got all these people that go into the education system as young people, in year 9, year 10, through to year 12. It's only a very small percentage of those that come out of the mainstream education system into TAFEs to study. And even of those ones that come out of the TAFE system, you've got distilling again. So you might have 13 students who go into a class, but maybe only 3 or 4 that complete the whole certificate and then proceed through to have a valuable and long career in the industry. Some might go into industry and do a year or two and go, it's not what I thought it was. I'll move into something else. So that idea of maybe the people who progress through and have a career in industry really is probably 1 in 1,000. Yeah.
That's really interesting because, I mean, part of me wonders if that's just how it is. People try stuff, it's not for them, they do something else. But then part of me also wonders, is there something about the system that lets good people slip through the cracks because it doesn't it doesn't, I don't know, it's not welcome in the right way, or it doesn't speak the right language to some people?
I think we're getting better at that. I do remember going into kitchens with some high-profile chefs going back 15 or 20 years ago, and their attitude was, this young person has to have passion, and they'd push them so hard in that first 6 weeks that you'd again lose a proportion that should have stayed. But I think in today's world, chefs are much more empathetic, much more emotionally engaged with their young people. They're much more aware. They have deeper conversations around these things. So I think we are keeping more young people that should stay, and I hope into the future that will continue. But just getting them to that door is a challenge in itself. It's not a career that we have publicised through the media in the most positive of lights. Through various television shows, all about pushing people, and you're against the clock and all that sort of thing. In the minds of families, I think we still have some work to do about making this a much more understood industry, and the fact that it is an ongoing career that can last somebody a lifetime and can be incredibly rewarding.
So what are some of the things that you wish people knew about the industry?
I personally think it's a brilliant career. It's thrilling, it's exciting, it's ever changing. There's new experiences every day. There's a camaraderie and a family vibe within the industry. So chefs support chefs in a way that I don't think any other industry does. You know, if something's wrong or something's happening, and you know, chefs go to each other for support. You know, they're there for each other. You know, incredibly supportive and caring people. I'm in 3 different chefs associations, and I couldn't ask for a more generous and caring group of friends than the people that I've gathered as friends through the industry. And I've always found as well that as a woman working in the industry, chefs associations are so supportive and so welcoming towards women, and so supportive, and I'm actually seeing that also even at the young levels now. Apprentices coming through, they're supporting of all genders, all diversity, and incredibly supporting and nurturing industry.
Yeah, that's, I mean, wonderful to hear all that, Sarah. It's certainly, you know, we've heard on this podcast and in, you know, in the media about hospitality being a difficult industry for women and people of diverse backgrounds and diverse genders. Do you think it's the corner of the industry that you've found that you found so supportive, or do you think it's just good luck, or do you think you're in an industry that is rapidly changing?
I think I'm in an industry that's changing, and I can't speak for the restaurant sector fully. I've only really engaged in a couple during my career. But the locations that I've been in and the work environments I've had, as you say, I've either been incredibly lucky, or my personality has just brought the best out in those around me, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. You know, you mentioned aged care as an option for chefs, and I think I'd love you to talk a bit more about the kinds of things you hear about it in terms of creativity. I think a lot of people sort of write off aged care as, you know, bland and boring. But are you able to bust any myths around that?
Well, there's a new genre of textured modified food. So I presume you realise that when people reach a certain stage in life, they find it challenging to swallow. So within aged care, obviously all the food that you want to produce has to be nutritionally balanced, nutritionally diverse, and, you know, the quality of food now, due to government guidelines, should hit certain nutritional and, you know, presentation guidelines, I suppose you would say, about the quality of the food that's being served. But textured modified food fits within a niche for those people who are finding it challenging to swallow. And I've actually been engaged with several chefs in this area, and there's competitions now around developing quality food items that have nutritional efficacy, but are texture modified, so they're made from gels and gums. They've got all the original ingredients in them, and then they reshape them to look perfectly like the product they should have been. To give those people that are in that area a presentation and style of food that looks delicious, but at the same time, they can eat it without the challenges of choking or anything like that.
Wow, it's just a really beautiful show of respect, isn't it, to people who are in that stage of life?
Yes, yeah. And there's more work going on in that area. I know Maggie Beer's got a program coming out shortly on the ABC, which will delve into some of these areas. And one of the people I have on our committee was engaged in part of that program. So there's all sorts of exciting things happening in that space actually in the moment, and a lot of change has to happen. You know, following these government guidelines. I know that there's parameters around how much the homes can spend per person. But they are trying very hard. The other challenge that I hear a lot of is that they need more training in that sector, because you would have one executive chef maybe across 10 homes, or one manager across 10 homes. Then you'd have a site head chef, and then there's usually quite a lot of cooks. So if somebody's going into an executive role in those homes, they need to be quite good at communicating, training, developing programs, and managing a lot of paperwork, because there's a lot of administration across all of the sites to meet government protocols.
Yeah, so interesting. Well, again, you just point to so many different aspects that there can be in the career of a chef. Sarah, so interesting to get your perspective on the industry. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us as we wrap up our convo?
Yes, I'd just like to say that Technical Chef, we've just relaunched our website at technicalchef.com. So if anybody would like to know a little bit more about our accreditation process and our organisation, please feel free to reach out to us through email.
Wonderful. Well, we'll put the website in the show notes so people can have a look at it. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing with us today, Sarah. It's really wonderful, and appreciate you taking time out from the apprentice competition at the Gordon in Geelong. It's a great institute. I've enjoyed time I've spent there.
It is. It's a great institute, and the energy and passion today is absolutely incredible.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for bringing your energy and passion to Dirty Linen. We're grateful.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you very much, Dani. I've enjoyed talking to you.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.